Welcome to Elevate eCommerce, the podcast where we elevate your e-commerce game. Join our host, Hi Mag, CEO of Eva, as he shares the latest strategies in Amazon, omnichannel, and advertising. Whether you're a seasoned entrepreneur or just starting, Hi's insights and expert interviews will help you thrive in the e-commerce world. Tune in for practical tips and transformative success stories to elevate your business to new heights.
Hi, and welcome back to the Eva eCommerce Elevate podcast. Today, we're going to be diving deep into e-commerce advertising, specifically focused on Amazon DSP. I'm very excited to welcome our special guest, our Director of Advertising, Michael Gold, and he's going to share some golden nuggets with us all today about Amazon DSP and e-commerce advertising. So, Michael, I know you're a busy guy, so let's go ahead and jump right in. So, to start off, can you explain what the difference is between DSP and PPC? And why is DSP so important?
Yeah, so DSP and PPC actually work together. So they aren't necessarily completely different platforms, if you will, but DSP is different in that you can target people across the entire internet versus PPC, which is only able to target customers on Amazon.com. And so the power of DSP is that you do get that additional level where you can utilize your data from sponsored ads, PPC, and use it to target people and audiences that are previously.
Awesome. And so I know one of Eva's offerings is free DSP. Why would Eva offer free DSP, and what's the value add that Eva can bring to DSP?
Yeah, I think with the free DSP, we just want to showcase that, hey, we are really excited about our DSP program. We want to first prove to these brands that this is worthwhile investment, advertising DSP with us, and we aren't going to ask for any more money than it takes just to launch it. And, if they're satisfied, right, after some time, we can, discuss, more about that. But ultimately, we want brands to sort of see their brand sales and overall sales grow, as well as, find out, what it's really all about. Because I think that there are just so many misconceptions, and there's just going to be more hesitation if they have to pay a fee on top of the DSP advertising. So we're having this unique offering to say that, look, we are well aware of, the hesitation, but our program is different. We are performance-based, and we are never going to ask you to invest more. We just want you to realize the benefits of that. And, I think the idea is as well, again, between the differences of DSP and sponsored ads or PPC, is that with DSP, you can actually utilize that data that you already have, but Amazon's first party data as well. So in terms of other DSP programs, you just won't have that granularity in terms of your ideal customer and also, your data in terms of who you've had success with in the past, similar products, similar keywords that you've done well with. And so we really just want to showcase the power of that as an additional layer onto your PPC.
That makes a lot of sense. So I'm curious, I know some brands hold negative opinions to using DSP, and can you speak to that, and how might you play devil's advocate for a brand that's written it off?
Yeah, I mean, we get horror stories all the time, brands coming from other agencies where they just weren't seeing the types of results that they wanted to. There are people posting on Twitter about, Amazon DSP run by ChatGPT, and things like that, which, are pretty hilarious to me personally. And I think that ultimately it comes down to other maybe brand managers or agencies kind of throwing spaghetti at the wall, hoping it sticks. and sort of targeting these very broad in-market or lifestyle audiences, and not getting granular enough in terms of who is actually going to convert. And so what we recommend, and what I've seen be successful, is first establishing that middle and bottom funnel DSP before you go after the super high, sort of awareness plays. And it comes down to refining your audience targeting so that you're not only becoming more of you're narrow in terms of who you're going after, but also utilizing a lot of that brand data, a lot of your past sales data, and then also within your category, where are you having success? And even to the point where which products you're going to be having the most conversion rate on, right? And so I think that when it comes to these horror stories, I've seen people come and tell me that, hey, we spent $10,000 plus, we didn't see any sales. We didn't see any growth in our bottom line sales, and it's typically either you're only targeting branded customers that are already familiar with your brand, and you're just reaching them across the internet, and therefore cannibalizing sales that would already normally be organic, and therefore that kind of explains why they're not seeing the bottom line sales growth when using DSP. And then the other side of the coin is they are saying, oh, because it looks really good, right? Lifestyle in market, if you're selling smartwatches, it makes sense to target lifestyle interests and smart gear, in market for smartwatches specifically. But what we found here is that those audiences are typically not as relevant or as actively shopping the category as one might think. And so the return is relatively low, and ultimately those are going to be virtually unprofitable if you're only targeting those and you aren't interested in just promoting your brand as an awareness play, because ultimately those are really used for brands are really trying to dominate the space. They've already established a solid base of sales, and that's when we also say, hey, let's use this for video as well, right? Let's get these on TVs. There's over the top, there's online video, and with more and more Amazon on properties, we have priority in showing those ads at actually a cheaper price than any other DSP that is available. So I think the long and short of it is just that it really comes down to the audiences you're going after, the relevance of the products that you're advertising, and the way you're setting it up so that the creative you're using as well is going to feel endemic, right? Because a lot of people and brands start to use their own creative, and it kind of starts to bleed into this sort of messy space, brands coming at you all over the place, and typically the Amazon customers does not like that, right? And so we lean towards responsive or endemic looking ads where it more feels like Amazon is just giving you a reminder, hey, this product is still available. You were shopping, and then they can say, oh yeah, I've been on Amazon in a couple of days, but I was planning on buying that, right? And it seems more like Amazon itself is advertising the product versus the brand trying to get you to buy something. And so, there's a lot of levers that we pull on top of that, but I would say that's kind of the core of, why I see those sort of unsuccessful attempts to run DSP.
Awesome. Yeah, that was a very full scope. And so you mentioned this really briefly, but can you speak any more to concerns about DSP cannibalizing other ads? I know that's one of some brands' fear specifically.
Yeah, and that's always a concern, right? Because brands don't want to pay twice for a sale that they're already going to get, or a sale that they might get through a sponsored ads or a PPC ad, right? And so there's always a lot of confusion. Hey, if they click my DSP ad, and then they click a sponsored products ad, how am I going to know what caused the sale, right? And so with Amazon, it's actually last click or last touch attribution. So it's whichever ad they click last that's going to be attributed to the sale. But it also comes down to our targeting, right? If we are only going after our customers that have purchased before, or customers that are searching for our brand, by product searches is one of the audience names, or product viewers. That's really low funnel, and ultimately you're not going to be able to get the same volume of new to brand customers, right? And so when we look at, are we cannibalizing sales, the main metric that, or KPI that we want to look at, is new to brand sales percentage, right? And I've seen as low as 20% on the DSP, which is, that's terrible, right? 80% of your customers already know your brand. They're most likely already going to purchase your product. And so to recommend, what I shoot for is 80% minimum of new to brand customers, because that tells us that, hey, these customers haven't heard of you before, they haven't purchased your product before, and so we're not capturing any sales that already have high intent to purchase your brand specifically. And so there are a couple factors on that front, and I think just the main issue is really what you're going after and the audiences you're targeting, because again, a lot of agencies like to show off a pretty return on ad spend, and they aren't sure how to do that with targeting mid-funnel. And so they often rely on these low funnel campaigns to kind of boast on, hey, look at this return we're getting, invest more with us. But then you guys are like, oh, well, we're not really seeing, a bottom line sales to keep, throwing money at ads if our business isn't necessarily growing, right? And so that's all about, I would say new to brand customers are the lifeblood of bottom line sales, right? The only way you grow your business is by going after those new customers. And so I think that DSP is probably one of the best ways to target those customers because there is that longer consideration period for people who are shopping the aisle but not sure which brand to buy. And if you can be top of mind by showing your ad placements across everywhere they're searching on the internet, not just when they're on their Amazon app or shopping online, older demographics tend to be on desktop. The younger ones tend to be more on mobile. Most people are on mobile. And so becoming more present, if you will, while those people are still thinking about, which brand do I want to buy, because there's so many options, that becomes super critical.
Totally. Well, you have me sold on DSP, so did your job. But so I know one of Eva's offerings is optimizing bidding on DSPs. So can you speak a little bit more to that and how DSP bidding might mitigate some of those concerns that you brought up with brands who are struggling to use it properly?
Absolutely. So DSP bids are actually called eCPM versus CPC. And so it's not cost per click, it's cost per 1,000 impressions. And so typically your bid is going to be much higher than you would see normally in a PPC campaign, right? $1 bid is sort of average for PPC campaigns. Upwards of $10, $15 is average for eCPM campaigns. But what a lot of people don't realize is they just go after these large CPMs and they aren't looking at what they're winning those impressions at on an actual cost, right? And it might be less than $1, right? And so if you're not optimizing against that, you're actually not only spending too much, but you're not refining your spend with Amazon suggestions, right? And so we find that we actually get better performance the closer we optimize downwards, if that's the case, or upwards to within about 10, 15% of the actual average eCPM. And so it is sort of this constant manual process, necessarily the same available automation there, but Eva is on the forefront of that as well, to where you can really consistently refine what you're spending on these ads and getting the most bang for your buck, right? And so it really comes down to analyzing also other factors like click-through rate, conversion rate, because if ultimately the goal is to get way more clicks than we're paying for, right? Because 1,000 impressions, maybe you only get one click, you're still paying for those 1,000 impressions. 1,000 impressions, you get 100 clicks, you're still only paying for the 1,000 impressions. So we want to make sure click-through rate and conversion rate is lining up with what we're actually investing in, because that's going to have an immediate and direct impact on ROAS, ACOS, total ROAS, etc.
That is all super informative. So thank you for that. You're clearly very knowledgeable. So I'm curious, you did mention, as people are scrolling on other screens or other sites outside of Amazon, uh, what kind of offerings are there for DSP ads?
Yeah, so they have a variety of placement options. You can customize if you'd like, although we do recommend having Amazon sort of automatically decide, because it can optimize based on those ad sizes, right? Like 6 or 7 standard ad sizes. And so what we typically do by utilizing that data is we say, oh, okay, the 725 by 50 ad is performing the best. The 325 by 250 ad is actually not doing very well for us at all. Let's optimize downwards for those types of ads or eliminate them completely. And that's a whole nother level of refining that you can do to increase your performance, right? And so there's I think a lot of the problems that people have with DSP is there's just too many options, right? There's too many different levers that you have to pull. It's a much more complicated interface. There's a lot of different sort of pages and tabs you have to go through to figure out, how do I even set up this campaign? And taking the guesswork out of that, and using our knowledge to really go into every single one of those factors is really what creates a successful program.
So that's where Eva would step in, would be to help guide.
That is where you would, right? Because a lot of times they're going to come in with their own creatives. They're going to say, and what another thing that we do is say, let's grab your creatives, let's grab your top performing copy, and let's A/B test it, right? Because that's something that we can do very easily at DSP, right? And then we get the data on every single ad placement to see exactly how it's performing, not only overall, but by line item, by audience, etc. And so we can also leverage that, as a way on a very granular level and inform the brand, hey, this is pretty significant amount of data, and we're showing that this tag, and brands can then take that into their marketing dev team. They can utilize that across other e-com platforms, other advertising platforms, and so it becomes a sort of very useful tool that we really are limited in that sense on PPC.
That makes a lot of sense. And do you have anything to add to just my curiosity about patterns with repeat purchase behavior or consumable products where DSP is concerned?
Yeah, so actually that is one of the best ways to utilize DSP, because you have a much wider variety of negative targeting options where you don't have a PPC with sponsored display, right? You can't necessarily negatively target audiences that have purchased within the last 30 days, but haven't purchased in the last 90 days, etc. So like if your window of repeat purchase and that it's 3 months, right? You can target customers that have purchased in the last 6 months or 9 months or a year, but haven't purchased in the last 2 months, right? And so you can refine it based on your own customized purchase window. A lot of the times customers don't really know what that is, and so we can experiment with different look back windows. But ultimately, you have just much more control over those customers that you target, especially repeat purchasers. And then on top of that, you get data on subscribe and save customers, which you don't have access to in the regular ads console. You just have it on a Seller Central level data, but you don't get an idea of how your ads are actually influencing subscribe and save customers. And so we actually have that very clearly, in the DSP. Here's how many subscribe and save customers these ads produce, right? And typically, the more that we can refine, based on that repeat purchase window, the more success we have in bringing those customers back to our brand versus another brand, etc.
That makes perfect sense. So if you were to be kind of building a cohesive advertising strategy for a brand, including DSP, but also being that the landscape of digital marketing is so fragmented, what would you suggest, kind of broad strokes, with the inclusion of DSP, of course?
Yeah, so I would suggest, investing about 30% of your PPC spend that you're currently doing on Amazon. We can also do DSP only, and that is something you experiment with. But ultimately, you want to be already on Amazon PPC because those data points work together, right? And so we recommend, starting out with about 30% of that budget, investing into DSP, and targeting predominantly middle funnel audiences, right? About 80% of the budget we're going to spend on middle funnel. But that being said, as you mentioned, we still want to be targeting loyal customers. We want to be creating that loyalty audience. So we're also going to target, with about 20%, depending on the brand, towards those customers that we want to purchase from us again. But again, we always want to use DSP as a way to grow the business. And so we're always going to go after those mid-funnel, upper mid-funnel, that entire area, before we ever invest $1 into the upper funnels, right? And so that's a good place to start. And then a lot of brands will say, hey, this is doing great. We're seeing such a good return. We're seeing such a good sales boost. We want to actually get our brand out more into this category, become more of a household name. So listen, it's okay, great. Now we're buoyed by that, ultimate core mid and bottom funnel sales programs or advertising program on DSP that we can then go ahead and advertise on awareness using video, using those in-market and lifestyle audiences without losing money, right?
Yeah, I mean, so much knowledge just dropped.
I'm just a nerd. I'm just a super nerd. That's all.
Yeah, great. I love it. But it does sound like DSP really serves a purpose of having the potential to reach broader audiences and across different platforms and channels, and leveraging places outside of Amazon to capture more customers. So that's great. And I'm curious, as we're thinking about kind of what the future of this e-commerce landscape is going to look like, and within the DSP space, how do you suggest brands leverage DSP for this next quarter, and just preparing to be using it?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. Especially with Q4, the influx of traffic is really the main point, and so brands are going to be so competitive on PPC. It's going to get outrageously expensive. And so the cool part about DSP is it doesn't see that kind of same type of competitive lift in pricing for those auctions, right? You're still getting good pricing for your average eCPM. There's just not as many brands using it as there are brands using sponsored products, especially, but also sponsored brands can be extremely expensive during Q4. And so it's a much more profitable way to sort of capitalize on that influx of traffic across all e-commerce, at a much more profitable and efficient, price point. And so, and then on top of that, you get much more data than you ever would just using sponsored ads, because you have such a broader reach. And we're talking about millions of people in that audience versus 100,000, right? Because again, you have Amazon's first party data of people that are maybe haven't been on Amazon in a while, right? But they are across the web. Amazon still knows they're interested in that product, and so you have just this sort of leg up on the competition when you're using DSP, especially during the holiday season. That's your product, that seasonality. And I think that ultimately those factors alone, are arguably some of the best value sort of propositions that make it worthwhile.
Thank you. So, I feel like I'm sufficient on my end of the questioning, but if you have anything to add that you don't feel like you covered that you think people might benefit from, feel free to share.
Yeah. I mean, the one thing I would add is that in order to really capture every piece of the advertising capabilities of Amazon, which, the next level is actually Amazon Marketing Cloud, AMC. But if you want to use AMC, you have to have DSP first. And so larger brands that have the ability to invest on that level. But when you do have each of those rungs of the ladder, AMC kind of comes in once you have DSP established and then gives you all these other levers to pull in terms of audiences that you could never pull with just sponsored products or just DSP. And those are with custom search queries, right, using SQL. And so with those, you get an even more refined audience they can target and even more likely to convert audiences. And you also get data sort of across internet on attribution. And so you
Sorry,
a much more
because of the dog barking, but you
Sure.
were definitely in the middle of saying something great.
Yeah,
So we're
and
back.
that's really just that. Sure. And so the main, I think another main, use case or value that you get out of DSP is it allows you to access Amazon Marketing Cloud, right? And that's going to allow you to not only have much more efficient targeting with audiences, that you do not have access to in the other two platforms, because we have the ability to create those search queries based on specific search terms with sponsored products or sponsored display. We can create all sorts of queries in terms of look back windows and audiences. On top of the in market, we also want to see, who has been shopping in the last couple of weeks, right? That we're going after this broad audience, but we are still getting that type of pool from Amazon's first party data that you just can't access any other way. And then the last part is just seeing a more holistic view of your business across all of e-commerce, across all advertising platforms with that added level of visibility into your attribution, which Amazon Marketing Cloud is the only way that you can actually do that. And so there's a lot of levers within that too that you can pull, marketing mix models, all sorts of brand lift studies and things like that also are really boosted by, through DSP, but also AMC. And DSP, that's typically, a lot of those are available, right off the gate, the brand. So it's like you get a whole nother level of views and reporting that you could just, never really get your hands on otherwise. And so I just think that, as you're growing your brand, you want to make sure to start off with PPC, right? And then you get to that next tier and you use DSP. And then, once you're really thriving, you got to use all of those three layers. And that's really how you run a super most effective possible Amazon advertising program.
No, that is such an incredible overview of why DSP is so great. And also for those kind of sellers or brands looking to scale, it seems like the right time to kind of take action and do that. So yeah, I mean, I hope that, a lot of people can benefit from the webinar with you. We're really lucky to have you on our team at EVA. And again, thank you so much for giving some golden nuggets. Gold, obviously. I told you I had some puns for you, but I look forward to hosting the webinar with you and our CEO. And I hope that this podcast was insightful, and stay tuned for our next one. And thanks, Michael, and I'll see you soon.
My pleasure. Yeah, thanks, Mayana.
Of course.